Hello again, gamers and gamettes, and welcome to another episode of Not So Hardcore Gaming. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today I have with me Ben.
Hello.
Ben has been on an episode a little bit before. In that episode we talked about GTA 5, but this time we're not talking about a specific game. Instead, we're going to be talking a bit console versus console. You know, why we prefer one over the other. The old classic debate. So, let's get straight into it. Starting off, I'll say, for me, over the last year or two, I've been mostly a PlayStation guy. I play a lot of PlayStation games, whereas Ben is an Xbox gamer.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we can talk a bit about why we prefer one console over the other. I try to be unbiased, right? So I'll play either console. I like both, but Ben is a bit more
Xbox.
Yeah, so
I used to play PlayStation, but I play Xbox more than PlayStation.
Yes, so you just prefer it?
Mm.
So
Used to play PlayStation too.
Yeah, that's good. Means we can both talk from both sides. So this one, it's not going to be as structured. It's just going to be a good old conversation. Starting off, we'll talk about we'll talk about some of the exclusives. So, as far as I have been aware, the PlayStation exclusives, they're more well known for being a bit more wide range. And the exclusives for it tend to be nice big hits, you know. We've got God of War. Everybody knows God of War. It's one of everyone's favourite. You've got Bloodborne, which is very, very famous game, and one of my personal favourites as well. And, you know, I could go through the whole list, but for me, you know, there are a lot of more names that stick around. For you, what are some of your favourite Xbox exclusives?
That's a hard one. I liked an Xbox exclusive called State of Decay. And that's been a good game. I did like its exclusives when Microsoft brought out the two add-ons, which are Breakdown, which is the same map version of State of Decay, what the story's in, but they made it an add-on so you can continue playing it with levels.
So what other Xbox exclusives
and then
do you like?
There's Lifeline, which is like a city version thing.
Okay.
Mm.
The other exclusives for Xbox, which I think stand out.
Forza Horizon?
Yeah, Forza Horizon.
Forza Motorsport?
Forza Motorsport is not Xbox exclusive. Forza Motorsport is a series for both, but Forza Horizon is exclusive.
Yeah, but Forza Motorsport's not on PlayStation.
No, it is. I have...
It's on PlayStation?
Yeah, Forza Motorsport is, but Forza Horizon is Xbox exclusive.
I never heard it was on PlayStation.
As well as that, you've got Halo. Everybody knows Halo.
Halo's not on PlayStation.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that I think is the most well-known exclusive.
Mm.
And you know there are a lot of games in that. But for I think me in particular, Forza Horizon and Halo are some of the most specific ones. You know, they're the most well known for it. Whereas with PlayStation, there are a lot more you'd know. You know, you've got Bloodborne, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn.
There is more Xbox exclusives.
Yeah, there is more, but they're not as well known. You know, they're sort of.
I don't know more about them anyway.
Yeah, it's sort of. I guess they don't stand out as much. So from
they probably do. It's just probably not by me.
Yeah, it's sort of. I think that's one thing a lot of people will point out about it. PlayStation exclusives are more well-known.
Exclusive.
Well, let's not get into that because that's not an exclusive.
I know. I'm just saying. Imagine if it was.
Well, if it was, we'd add it there, but it's not. So as I said, I think exclusives is one of the things that PlayStation does a bit more because they stand out more. They're more well known. They're bigger names is the easiest way to say it. And again, like with this conversation, I'm not going to try and say this is why this one is better. That's not something I like to do. But I do want to talk about
Uncharted?
Yeah, as like there are well known ones.
Mm.
Yeah, as it's so. I want to sort of say one versus the other, but in the end, I'm not going to really put out this one is better. I like both. I'm the type of guy, I'll enjoy any platform. I enjoy some PC games and whatever else. So don't expect like a flat out statement of, oh, this one is better. So moving on from the exclusives, we'll go into a bit about the console layouts, per se, is one, because that is quite an important one. The navigation for them. Now, that is one that becomes quite important for the consoles, because you have to know your way around quickly. You have to be able to know where to go quickly, otherwise it can become a bit of an ordeal. With some consoles, they're a bit difficult, but for both of these, the navigation around the consoles is fairly good, and the layouts are quite good. So the home layout for Xbox, what do you have to say on that?
What, like the background of the Xbox?
Yeah, just the way it's set up. How you navigate around everything.
So on your controller, you've got the
No, not the controller, the console itself.
Oh, like the console.
Yeah, like the console on the screen.
You navigate using the home screen and stuff.
So is there anything you would improve about the layout?
Maybe add it that you could. I don't know. You could add it to make it a little bit more easier.
So you mean like quicker navigation?
Yeah,
is
quicker.
That what you're trying to say?
So you don't have to like spend maybe a minute or two. I know it's better than spending an hour, but you can maybe get into your profile like a second, and then switch out of that,
Yeah, fair enough. So in the end, like, do you find it difficult, or do you find it very easy to navigate?
Well, it's easy, but
yeah,
it would be better if it was quicker.
For me, like when I look at the Xbox layout, I think it is set quite well. It was one I remember picking up very quickly. It's all together, and the problem that ended up coming when they update it, navigating around after it's updated can be quite difficult, because I've had that a couple of times. It changes how you navigate, and that
you just gotta get used to it.
Yeah, and it's sort of like it's weird to do it, and I think I've found Xbox updates it more, whereas PlayStation, for as long as I've had it, it hasn't changed.
So no updates.
Yeah, like the layout, the way you go to everything, for at least for the time that I've had the console, it hasn't really changed. So we'll talk about that again in a second. But as I said, for the Xbox itself, the navigating is quite good.
Maybe they just like to improve the picture on the looks. So when you have it on TV, you just improve it so people say, "Hey, they're actually doing a good job,"
Yeah, I mean, like there's advantages to updating it, but again, it's sort of like how easy is it to navigate, and for it is relatively simple. You've got your achievements, your profile, anything like that is off to the side. You navigate through that fairly easily.
You've got your recordings, your pictures, your game pictures and stuff, and screen records and all that you've got. So and then you got your party, your chats, all that. So there is an easy way to navigate.
Yeah, so it's not difficult by any means. It is fairly easy. Going into the PlayStation, there are a few things I think that it does slightly better. First thing that I've noticed with it, when you're on the PlayStation, if you want to take a recording or whatever, there's a button specifically for it. Whereas with the Xbox, until you get used to, you have to navigate through a different menu, and it's sort of, it can be a bit of an adjustment for it.
On the new Xbox controller for the Series X and S, they have a special button on it that you can press to record, and you can screenshot at the same time.
There you go. Well,
haven't you seen my controller?
No, I haven't seen
Well,
it
you've
yet.
already you've already seen it. It's the main one I've got. It's got that button in the center I've showed you.
Yeah, but for this one, we're talking about Xbox One versus PlayStation 4.
Yeah, but
It's
it's on the Xbox One. I'm using it on the Xbox One.
Yeah, but it's a future gen console. So, like, it's a future gen controller. So we're talking about the older one, right? And so that is one thing it doesn't do quite as well, is there's no set button for it. Whereas with the PlayStation, there's a button, you press it, and that's all you got to do, really. It's I think that is one way it was set up better, and I found that to be easier. As well as that, you've got the pad on it, the big button, which will...
I didn't mind it. I didn't really care. It didn't really bother me. All I had to do on the Xbox, if I wanted to record or screen record, I'd just go in for the tabs and screen record. It's only going to take me a second to just pause the game to get into the recording. It's not that hard.
Yeah, but the issue that comes with it, if you want to get a screenshot of the game itself and you have to pause the game to do it, you can't get the screenshot, can you? So for recording, it may be better, but for a screenshot...
Unless it's an online game and it doesn't pause.
Yeah, it's sort of... That's, as I said, why I think...
Like GTA 5, that doesn't pause when you go on the menu.
Yeah, but I've found more games do, whereas with the PlayStation, I haven't had any games which pause when you do it. So that's...
Except for Forza.
Yeah, but that's another Xbox game that you're talking about. I'm talking about PlayStation games. And so for PlayStation, I haven't had any game which pauses when I try to take a screenshot, whereas I've had a couple with the Xbox. So that, I think, is one of the better advantages to it, and it's easier to screenshot, and it just seems to work a bit smoother. Navigating around on the PlayStation, originally I had a bit of trouble when I first got it, but it's a new console, that's to be expected, but I very much like the way that it's done.
When I played on one of my family members' PlayStation 4, I kind of gotten a little bit... I wasn't used to it, because I was more used to it on Xbox and navigating and stuff, and when I went on PlayStation, I didn't know what the hell to do, what the hell to do. Yeah.
Yeah, so once you know how to do it, it's easy enough. And for PlayStation, I think the navigation is a bit simpler to me. I've found, you've got your home screen where it has all your apps, all your games. When you hover over a game and you go down, that's how you find your achievements, just by pressing down on it.
I didn't mind that when I saw that. I didn't mind it. It's just I prefer having like a normal home screen. Then you click onto the home screen which says games and apps. Click onto that, and then up comes all your games. And then if you want to go to apps, you go down separate of apps.
Yeah, as like that is. It is good to separate them, but for me, I prefer, because it's just so much quicker on the PlayStation, I go a game there, I'm done. And as I said, so I find the layout of the home console is better on the PlayStation. As well as that, you go to the side, you've got your power mode, you can put it in rest mode, power off mode, and it's all there. You've got your achievements, your notifications separate. Very, very easy to navigate, and as well as that, if you're in a game and you want to shut the game down, with Xbox it seems a bit different for me.
You just gotta press on the controller on the 3 lines to quit it.
Yeah, for me it just seemed a bit more difficult to find. At first I couldn't find out how to do it easily, whereas with PlayStation... Yeah. You bring up it and you've got a close app right there. It's very, very easy and very, very quick. So I feel like the home layout as well as...
I found it easy on Xbox.
Yeah, it's sort of like... It is easy because you're used to it, but for someone like going from one to the other, it's...
harder.
You got to press more buttons. It's even though it's only 1 or 2 more buttons, it just takes a little bit longer
to figure out.
Again, like these are minor things. There's semantics, but that's just what I found.
You get over it eventually.
Yeah, exactly. These are minor things that I've noticed, but when all added together, I think it is one
the
thing
same
that
thing, really.
PlayStation does better. It's simpler and quicker to
Well, you
navigate
gotta
around.
remember, they're pretty much the same thing, except they both have their own disadvantages on the games and stuff. But at the end of the day, they do the same thing, except
Except with their own flair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's sort of... So that's why I don't get heavy into like, oh, this console is better, because it's minor things, So, again, looking at that, it's not a massive difference between the two.
I never said I hated PlayStation.
Oh, I've heard you say that once before.
Oh, I have, but I don't fully hate it. I still like it. It's just I prefer more Xbox than PlayStation. But if I had the chance to ever own a like I said, if I was to ever own a PlayStation, I would buy it for the exclusives, I wouldn't mind.
Which is fair enough.
I wouldn't mind getting into every single game that brought out, but then what's the point? Because if I played it on Xbox, then what's the point of playing on PlayStation if I already played it? You know what I mean?
For cases like that, it can be a little bit different, though minor. Some games will be slightly different. Xbox sometimes will run a bit smoother than PlayStation or something like that. It's sort of minor differences again, but that's a whole other topic there.
On a flat screen TV, the 4K looks nice. It looks like you're just looking through a window, and it's like heaven.
It is a beautiful thing. And again, both consoles do that. Just
PlayStation actually does that too. I've seen on a few Call of Duty games that I played on my friend's console. I've seen the Call of Duty games actually do look nice in 4K.
Yeah, it's fairly simple.
So it's both on both. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But so as we were saying, the layouts for them are minor differences, but one will just excel slightly, and for me, PlayStation does. We'll move on to another thing, and this is very slightly different, I know, but when you're playing certain high-spec games, games that require a lot of power, one thing that I have noticed Xbox does quite a bit better is it seems to handle the high requirements better. It needs to have a certain spec requirement to be able to, run smoothly as well as look good. And when you do it on PlayStation, it may be something that's a bit more choppy, and you start up a really high quality game, and within 30 seconds, wind turbine noise, it is loud. Whereas I've been playing Xbox, and for example, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it is a big game, and it has beautiful graphics for it.
Yeah.
So it requires a lot of power, but I can never hear the fan. Yeah, so it's like, how...
I've heard the fan a few times on my Xbox, but that was only for when Mum's putting the games over the fan, and I tell her, don't you put the games over the fan, it overheats.
Yeah. But see, if
that's the only time I've heard the fans. Other than that, they're quiet as
yeah, they're very quiet, and as that's probably, in my opinion, just about the biggest advantage Xbox has is it handles higher processing games much better.
But that doesn't mean it's the best.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing that will often, when I see people vehemently arguing about which one is better, there's no flat out this is better, because any time you compare two things at all, no matter what two things you're comparing, both will be better for one reason or another. One will excel at one thing, one will excel at another thing, so they're not flat out better.
There's been one question I've been asking. Why do consoles have fans?
What do you mean, why do they have fans? To cool it down.
Oh, yeah. I never realised.
Yeah. Because like it produces a lot of heat when you're using really high processing. The computer gem uses a lot of heat.
Oh, yeah.
But as to like that, the Xbox doesn't heat up as much, and it just seems to handle it much better. And so, as I said, looking at it, there are advantages that both will have, and in the end, it becomes a personal choice, not a flat out this one is better.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm making it very clear. I'm not saying either is better, because both will be slightly better for one reason or another. And as I said, for me personally, I've found navigating around the PlayStation is a bit easier, but playing high quality games is so much easier on the Xbox because it just handles it better. And those are the main two things that I think I can talk about, because that's two of the most important things for it. It's very important how it runs as well as how you get around on it. And the Xbox, I think, is a bit more complicated in some ways. But again, these are just two reasons for it. You look at the exclusives, that's just a whole other thing. But when you look at that individually, that would also become just a matter of opinion.
Well, there's a problem with one exclusive. It's not a bad problem, but it's about, on State of Decay 1, when you first load it up, it lags, literally. It lags like crazy when you move around. But it doesn't, it goes away eventually. Like, it only lags for like a minute or two, but that's one thing that they should fix, but it's not a problem because it goes away like in a minute or two. So it's not the worst problem. So it's not like it's gonna lag continuously in the game. It's not gonna lag. That's just a start. When the game probably is having big revs, it probably lags a bit at the start, but then it goes away and it's fine.
Yeah, fair enough. And as I said, when you look at the fact that Xbox does seem to have more processing power, you look at it and you think,
if you put State of Decay on PlayStation, it probably wouldn't handle it well.
Yeah, it would probably lag quite a bit more, but we won't know because it's not available there.
True. True.
The next thing that I will say is the controllers. Now that is a big thing because they are extremely different. The PlayStation controller, for example, is a lot smaller. It's a bit easier to hold. For me, I've got pretty big hands, so I can control either one easily. But when you're comparing the controllers directly,
they're different.
Yeah, they're quite a bit different. One thing I've noticed playing with the Xbox controller, the vibrations in it, when the controller vibrates, it's loud and it just vibrates weirdly. Whereas when I've got the slight vibrations from the PlayStation 4, it's a lot smoother. So I think the inner workings are quite a bit different.
I'm kind of used to it. It only vibrates loud when you have two controllers. That's the only time it vibrates for me, because I had two broken headsets, but one of them at least worked for the sound and the other worked for the mic, so I didn't really have a choice. So I was using both controllers, but I forgot to log the other controller into the second account, so it was vibrating like a mother trucker.
Interesting.
So every time I control the car in Forza Horizon 4, I'll be because that's the other controller.
Yeah, but I mean, when you play certain games, it will vibrate depending on what you're doing, and that's
the one thing I like about Forza. It vibrates. That's the realistic thing. GTA doesn't vibrate, but Forza it does, and that's what I found about the racing. I like the vibrating.
So it's certain games, and when we're not here to talk about just about games, but so the vibrations I find are very different, and I think PlayStation does a bit better because it's less coarse. the button layout. When you look at it, the button layouts are similar. There's sort of obviously there's different button names. You've got Y, B, A, and X on the Xbox, whereas it's triangle, circle, cross, and square. So it's
A, X, and Y.
Yeah, it's sort of like they're similar. They end up
Doing the same thing.
Yeah, mostly, and then of course the only main other difference is the PlayStation. When you've got the arrows and one of the joysticks, they are swapped.
Yeah,
and then the button names, and again these are all just semantics basically. You've got on the Xbox it's R T R B, and whereas on the Xbox it's R1 and R2. That was a bit of an adjustment for me because I was like, which one's number 1, number 2? But that's relatively minor again. It's very, very small things.
I looked on the Xbox and where's RB and LB.
The other thing I noticed as well with that, and this is just a minor thing for me as well, it's just one thing I find funny. When you're on the Xbox and you press RB or RT, it gives that satisfying click. You get the as you press it.
As you got the shifting.
Yeah, it's sort of like it feels good to press it, whereas the PlayStation
it's just harder.
It's sort of like the PlayStation it presses in a bit easier,
but it's not.
It's not as satisfying.
When the Xbox is just like,
yeah, it's sort of like you get that click.
That's what I like about it. Like every time I click the LB or the RB, I like it.
Yeah, it's like that again is a minor thing.
Unless you're on the PlayStation and you click it harder.
Even then, you don't really get that. You don't really get that noise.
Yeah, for the Xbox.
So that's not like a performance issue. That's just a funny thing I've noticed.
That's just one thing I like about the Xbox controller.
Yeah, and
plus I find the Series X and S controller better than the Xbox One.
Yeah, because it's newer, it's more advanced,
and it's just more like the PlayStation controller, because the PlayStation controller has like Jeremy says, the PlayStation controller has the screenshot button. It's got the same thing.
It's I think they call it haptic feedback. It's a bit better on the PlayStation. As I said, on the Xbox I noticed when it vibrates, it's a lot louder with it, and it just feels a bit strange. It's too strong, and I think that's another thing PlayStation does well is, it responds to game stimuli better. So the vibrating in it,
well, you get used to it.
Yeah, it's sort of like you get used to it, as I said, but when you look at it objectively, I think it's one thing. It's slightly improved on PlayStation 4 for me. It feels a bit better to control with, if that makes sense. Another thing, in terms of the console itself, comparing the console shapes, the PlayStation I think looks a little bit cooler, right? It's nice and sleek. It's shaped nicely. Whereas, like the Xbox, it's just a block. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's just one thing I've noticed. The designs is probably the biggest difference when you look at it objectively. Right?
I prefer the newer designs, because on the Xbox, if I was to get a Series X, it's just a lot smaller, When the Series S, the Series S is also the same thing as the Series X. It's a lot smaller.
And we'll save that comparison for another day.
But then the PlayStation 5 is a little bit oversized.
Yeah, so we'll say that for another day. Today, like we're talking older gen, which it is so weird when you talk about PlayStation 4 to say it's an older gen. That is just doesn't feel right.
Well, the only problem with PlayStation, they haven't made much newer gen consoles. With Xbox, you had the Xbox One, then you had the Xbox One S, you had the Xbox Series, had the Xbox One X,
but
the
see,
Xbox
like with
Series
PlayStation,
S and X.
Yeah, but with PlayStation, you had the Xbox, Sorry, you've got the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro.
Yeah,
Now
I know
you've
the
got
Pro.
PlayStation 5,
Vita.
which is, as well as that, you've got the digital and...
The Vita.
What
Vita?
do you mean?
Wasn't it Vita?
PS Vita. Oh, that's old days. That's a long time ago.
Oh.
So it's sort of like the console numbers aren't that different, but I guess the naming was just a bit more simple on PlayStation. It's like you've got PlayStation 4, then you got the better PlayStation 4. Whereas
the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4 Pro.
Yeah, so
That's
sort
confusing.
It's sort of, I think the naming is a bit
They should have had
simpler for
PlayStation
them.
4 1 and then PlayStation 4.
No, that would be way too confusing. That would be way confusing.
Yeah, they
should
have just left it.
Yeah. It's just the designs are a bit different, but the other thing I've noticed that I think Xbox does a bit better is, I guess it's personality. You know, it's got more designs for them. You had the original, you've got white console, black console, you've got special editions, which like Gears of War edition, where it's got the red, it's got the designs on it, and it even has custom startup noises. Now, that was one thing that quite surprised me about it. You know, it seems to have a lot more character to different consoles, whereas you look at the PlayStation 4, it's only really black and white. It doesn't have as many special editions for the design. So the consoles themselves, I think Xbox does have a bit more personality in it. You know? And so that's one thing I think they excelled at a bit more.
I do like the new design on the Xbox, like how it's. I know it's like a square, but like when you look at the top where the fan is, it's like slowly coming down and then coming like up like this, like a
So yeah, again, that's like future gen. So we'll talk about that another day. But for today, we're comparing older ones. The last thing I can really think to compare when you look at the two consoles, and this is one of the biggest things I think PlayStation excelled at, custom home screens. On the Xbox, I've noticed the home screen isn't as customizable.
Well,
right?
you can actually customize it,
but it's not as advanced. It's not as much.
It's look just at more like a picture.
Yeah, it's relatively simple for it, and I think there's not as much that you can do for it. When I look at the PlayStation 4, though, you can get custom themes, which changes everything. It changes the icons for it, so your library icon will look different, your settings icon will look different. You have a whole new background picture, and in some themes, you have new menu music. I don't think you can get that on the Xbox One. It's sort of like, it's that just not as...
That would be cool.
Yeah, like, I think it would be a lot better for it, but that's just one thing I think PlayStation 4 does better, is the home customization
Microsoft
screen
wouldn't be
is
able
much
to do
more
that
advanced.
anyway, because Sony's doing it, so Microsoft wouldn't be able to do that.
No, I'm sure
they could do their own versions, but they wouldn't be able to do the exact same.
Yeah, they can't do the exact same, but I feel like Xbox could improve on that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so the home screens, that is one thing that is a lot better on PlayStation 4, in my opinion. Again, a lot of the stuff we talk about, it's smaller things, but things I think... I think it adds up a bit more. So we said quite a few things, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of, again, this one, there wasn't as much of a guide when looking at this episode, you know. On other episodes, I'll have more of a in-depth guide of what I'm going to talk about, whereas for this one I wanted to make nice and natural, so this is off the top of our head stuff. This is just a good old plain conversation, and these are things that we have personally noticed, right? So it's more natural, and I think for this episode, I've enjoyed making this episode because it's good to compare the both to a certain extent, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as I said, I think we basically reached the end of this episode for this week. I hope you've gotten to see our opinion a bit more. I like to share my opinions somewhat here or there, and you know, don't take my opinion as fact. Nice, simple there. thank you for joining us this week. Ben, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. It's been nice being on the show.
I always enjoy having you here, and I hope to have you here again. And thank you,
Ciao.
listener, and I will see you in the next episode. See ya.